What does the Yakuza and Like a Dragon series mean to you?
Wow, it's a very deep question. So for me, when I was an aspiring young pro wrestler that wasn't sure if he could make it or how far he could make it, to me, the end goal was always I wanted to go to Japan. I wanted to do the best that I could there, and hopefully, if I could, become a champion, become a star, or whatever. But I wanted to apply my trade in Japan. So when that end goal wasn't in sight, when I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel just yet, Yakuza 1, which released on PS2, was kind of like the way to live vicariously in that world. And was almost like training grounds because knowing that it was sort of very loosely, but very accurately as well, kind of based around, you know, actual Tokyo. So it was cool to sort of be in this mythical city where there's neon lights everywhere and this whole brand new culture, a place that I wasn't sure if I could ever get to, but really wanted to go to. That was just sort of my way back then to really keep myself motivated, but then also to to absorb some great storytelling and an incredible single player adventure mode.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. The Yakuza games really do make you feel like you're in another world, right?
Right? No, absolutely.
So now that you actually are going to be in that world, you're going to be a part of Like a Dragon. How does that feel?
I mean, it's really it's kind of a dream come true, and I don't want that. It seems kind of like very cliche to say that, but I mean, it's there are things that we do in wrestling that, regardless of the effort or how well that you do, just via human nature, you forget about them, or that experience kind of ages. And if the experience doesn't age you as a performer, you as a wrestler, you age. There's no turning back the hands of time, so to speak. So to be involved in a game where as you are, you kind of live on timelessly is very cool. So I feel like at almost my wrestling peak, I get involved with something that has been near and dear to my heart, and it'll be preserved until eternity in that state is just very cool.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point when you say about eternity, because that's it. Like the moment you're in that game, you're there, for life and then some. So that's very
Yeah.
cool.
And in a way too, it's like, you have the RGG universe, but then you have Ishin, which, is to be taken, it takes part hundreds of years ago from the actual, Yakuza Ryu Ga Gotoku series. But, a lot of the characters bear the same likenesses. So it's as though, yeah, it really is as though they just live on eternally in that form.
I always think of Yakuza and immediately in Like a Dragon, and I always jump to Monkey Ball. Could you ever see yourself in Monkey Ball now?
I mean, yeah, why not? Geez, heck of a one of the best GameCube games that was ever released, in my humble opinion. So it's definitely due for more representation, and I'm surprised in a way that they just don't implement a major form of that in RGG, because I mean, why not at this point? Um, yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Sega Racers too. So
Mm.
um, yeah, and the more representation from some of the more forgotten series, or at least I feel like they are. I'm not sure 100%, but like some of the series that are maybe underrepresented in the year 2022 and 23 and beyond, the more we can kind of implement that stuff, the happier I am, because I'm just a fan of so many of the IPs and so many of the characters from my childhood or my teenage years that I'd love to see more.
Speaking of other games characters, because obviously you're sort of iconic in another sense for some of your inspired outfits.
Mm,
I wanted to ask you just a kind of couple of fun questions. Being that you're a wrestler, you're a pro at taking people on one.
yep.
How would you feel about stepping into the ring with a video game character like Kiryu?
So yeah, I mean, I'm always one thing that I love and pride myself about being a wrestler is that I love being able to take on anybody in their own preferred style or in their natural style. So um, for martial art experts or brawler styles, like how Kiryu would be, those are fun challenges for me because if I just did the same thing, match in, match out, where it's technical, speedy, or whatever.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, maybe it wouldn't get old, but the fact that there are so many varieties of wrestling and fighting styles, it really adds spice and flavor to kind of the viewing experience. So that's one thing that I love as well in I mean, of course, the RGG universe as one, but just in action movies in general, or fight scenes, I guess, which could take place in any genre. It's just when you start to see the styles clash, and you start to see someone who has, who might main a certain discipline against someone who studied under a complete different one. That was always sort of one of the cool things that I love about Bloodsport to this day, and why I can still go back and watch it. It's one of my favorite movies. It's just the clash of styles and the personalities, and the culture that goes into it. It's RGG has done a real good job of that too. Everyone, there's professional wrestlers, there's boxers, there's kickboxers, there's Muay Thai kickboxers, people that they practice Sambo, people who don't have any training at all and are just throwing wild hands. It's all represented, and so it makes for the battling system so fun.
You look at some of the fights between Majima and Kiryu, just as those two, as like the most iconic characters, and you think like they're just so beautifully choreographed. They feel sometimes like you're watching AEW or something, like the theater of them.
Now you can tell they've taken nods from the greatest of action movies and influences from the greatest action stunt performers of all time. So yeah, I remember too, even just like as recent as Lost Judgment, playing through that game. Some of the choreography in those fight scenes was like, oh man, I feel like I'm watching like an actual Jackie Chan choreographed fight scene. When it's when they're flipping around like the chair and stuff and using that to disarm. Yeah, I mean, just so cool.
Yeah, like watching Yagami and Koano in that game. Just it's like a superhero movie almost.
For sure. Yes, absolutely.
So now that like you're stepping into this kind of realm here, as the one-winged angel now, do you see yourself wanting to go down this line more video games?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a ton of fun. It's been really cool, and actually a learning experience too. I feel like being able to be more hands-on with the production of these types of things, it's kind of soothing for my soul as a gamer, and as someone who games as almost a lifelong passion. And I find myself being creatively inspired, and that kind of bleeds into my work as a professional wrestler. So when I feel creatively inspired to do something cool and new and fun for video games, which is another one of my main passions in life, I feel like it actually aids me in my 8 to 5, for lack of a better term. It aids me in what I do as a professional wrestler, whether it be come with character ideas, entrance ideas, story ideas, things that I can add to what I do in the ring. Video games are so flexible, in the same way that pro wrestling is so flexible, that they can interchangeably help one another, I think.
Could you ever see yourself like in a video game? Could you ever see yourself wrestling someone iconic like Sonic the Hedgehog? Now that you've stepped into Sega, could you see it going to that full cartoon level?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, we've seen again, Sonic, duke it out with all the fighters from Smash. We've seen cartoon-esque characters fight real life characters in a game, like Multiverses, for example. So it's just become kind of commonplace for fans to want to see something that shouldn't exist in their world exist and take part. So and wrestling is sort of like the actual physical embodiment, like the real life embodiment of that. Something that shouldn't be happening, or a clash between two athletes or more athletes, that shouldn't be happening legally, with an incredulous amount of violence. Of course, all for the sake of performance and having a fun time. So yeah, it's for sure. No, I think I could definitely see it. Absolutely.
Obviously, video games mean a lot to you. You can talk about them and your passion for them. What was your first game? Do you remember?
The first game that I remember, and I don't remember how it went, but I just remember being downstairs in my babysitter's basement with a group of kids, where if we were good little boys and girls, we would get 15 minutes to play Nintendo. And the thing that I remember the most, when I really try to think back, I remember the opening screen where you can either pick Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt. And I thought that that was so cool that, wow, you get two games, you get two for the price of one. And one of them you have to plug a gun in and you can shoot things. And then the dog laughs at you. I remember that being cool. I remember loving Excite Bike. And strangely enough, my next kind of very vivid memory was going over to that same friend's house where he was like, no. Oh, and I remember Punch Out. Punch Out was another huge one. But another vivid memory I have was coming over and like, hey, we're going to play NES. We're going to play Excite Bike. And he's like, no, I got this new thing to show you. And then he put in Splatterhouse for TurboGrafx 16. And I thought, whoa, like this, I didn't even know this thing exists. So I was already hooked at that point. And I remember, whether it be, I would do any chore in the world to get those 50 minutes of the babysitter. My neighbor at my cottage had video game systems and consoles. So I remember when his mom, who was super strict about letting people inside, she would say, okay, you can only have friends in between this hour and this hour. I would just sit in their front yard, just waiting, kind of chucking rocks in the water until it was time to go in. It was, I was definitely hooked at a very young age, for sure.
I mean, I've had a similar kind of experience myself, so I can really appreciate that. Like that, those little bite-sized chunks of gaming,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, this is just purely your opinion, but
yep.
The Like a Dragon series, it's often talked about as it would be perfect for like a spin-off, HBO style. Would you like to see something like that? And would you like to be a part of it in like your dream scenario?
So I've always felt that if it ever became a series or a movie, that it should definitely take a no nonsense, gritty approach to it, and it should be treated with the utmost respect that it deserves, I think, because it has a great opportunity for its incredible writers and for the wonderful actors that assume the roles to really kind of let their hair down and just go crazy with it, because some of the performances are and it's a shame that some of my friends who are fans of the series, and I know they've done a great job with it, with the dubbing, with the English voices as well, but I really wish that they could appreciate the Japanese voice acting for how well it's actually done, how well it's recorded, and how much emotion that you can get out of their faces and the reactions and the scenes that just the direction of everything, the way that it plays out. I think just that the game in itself being very cinematic in nature just lends itself perfectly to being a great series or movie, but I think I would prefer a series. And it would have to be, you'd have to blow the budget on it. You'd have to have a huge budget. We're talking like Sonic the Hedgehog levels huge, but I don't know. It's tough. Like it's a dollars make sense business, and Sonic is great because it can appeal to people of all ages and walks of life. And in my mind, it's like, if you want to make Yakuza or Ryu Ga Gotoku, what I think it should be, it's got to be like kind of John Wickish a little bit. So it has to have that aesthetic. It's got to be really, it can't pull any punches, and it's going to really be aimed at a very specific fan base or type of person, or at least more specified. So I don't know if that minimizes profit value or profitability, but I would selfishly like to see it being done that way, rather than like, hey, this could be something for everybody, so let's make it like a rated G thing. I think it's got to go hard rated R.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like you say with the sort of John Wick comparison, because you do have all that kind of that frantic, serious violence interspersed with a very serious story. But then Yakuza would kind of appeal more, because you'd have like in the trailer you'd have Kiryu punching a tiger, and I feel like that would always get people interested,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and generally speaking, there's always going to be some sort of involvement from the kabakura, or like host clubs, or some of the more zany things that happen in the Japanese culture, and or in the cities at night. So there's always going to be an opportunity to show that kind of carefree, funny, silly side to it. But I think, yeah, in general, I would love to see it managed kind of more, with a little more within the realms of reality, and really make people feel what I know that the storytellers can make people feel.